Smell hot. You smell that?
Hi, Matthew. Can you do a mic test for me?
I can hear like that things are happening somewhere. I don't know if that's it. Yeah, I'm hearing.
Yeah, it's good. Sound is good. Can you tell Ramel I just got logged off his computer?
Okay, awesome.
You can hear now.
Yeah, she said she just got logged off your computer.
Maybe that would be best. Yeah.
You don't know foil it. Yeah.
We do have.
It could be like just from your lunch or whatever. Yeah. Use one of them glass Tupperware people like. I didn't even know this. Make them still glass Tupperware. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, we're good. We're
You
live
want
over
me to
here.
test that sound now?
No, your sound
How's
is
the sound?
sound is good.
All right, awesome.
We're good. Ready?
Ready as in you want me to start?
Yeah, you can get started.
Okay, solid. Hmm? Mark says hello. But so start now?
Yeah, you can go ahead, Matthew.
Okay. Hi, I'm Matthew Rahming, and today we are doing Collagraphs. Right, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. But basically, this is another method of printmaking. And again, I like it because of its experimental nature and also like its adaptability. So I have some versions prepped already that I'll pull later. But right now, I'm gonna walk you through how to build one for yourself. So this again is just a piece of primed paper, nothing special, just something that that could take a little bit of chafing, you know, if it needs to. But because the material is soft, I've taped it to a piece of wood. Now, if the material that you use isn't as soft as this paper, it's not necessary. But I found that it's easier to get a good print if you're working on a solid surface. So you're gonna see when I go into some other methods that I'll be using some more malleable surfaces, and this piece of wood really supports it. So I hold it up, piece of wood, just really simple tape, and this is gonna be the workspace here, okay? So let's get started. Now, what's going to happen in this process is what we're actually doing is instead of making a drawing or inking up our block or making a carving, what we're actually going to do is we're going to add add things onto our surface that can give us a texture, relief, or something like that. Of course, you can use this method to create drawings, but it's a little bit more difficult, a little bit more time consuming, but it's worth it. So as always in printmaking, you want to take your time, you want to try and keep your space as clean as possible, and just have fun with it. Don't stress out too much. Just go. Let the material inform you. All right. So I've got.
And I don't think doing like
I've got some.
Or maybe it's
Sand here, and I have some glue here. So I'm just gonna take a little bit of this. It's actually just that's just wet glue. So I'm just taking a little bit of the wet glue and putting it on my surface. And of course, you don't want to use too much because you want it to dry relatively quickly and you don't want it to be goppy, unless that is the texture that you want, and that's fine, because sometimes that's the texture that you want. Just take some sand. I've actually never tried this with sand. I'm interested to see how that comes out. All right. That was Elmer's glue, and this is hot glue. Now, the reason why sometimes I use two types of glue is because, like I said, this is about texture. So different types of glue will dry different ways and give you different shapes and stuff like that, different heights and all of that. So I'm going to use some hot glue not only to adhere things to the surface, but also to aid in the process of giving me some of those textures. So this is another one of those parts of the process that could be used as a drawing element, because as you see, when you squeeze out hot glue, it gives you like this line, and you could use that to create something or make something stand out. So I'm just gonna take some newsprint paper and tear it up. I'm gonna start to stick it onto the surface. Now, this block is going to get inked up, and I know maybe it doesn't look like it could take the same paint kind of application that happens with a regular printmaking plate, but it does. And as the things like paper and stuff move around, it means that every time we pull a print off of this block, we're gonna get kind of a different view, because it's not really gonna stay as stable as something like a pencil mark will stay, you know? So I'm just adding all of this stuff on. Let's actually do a really big paper one. Let's see how this goes. So another interesting thing about this process is, if you're working in the way that I'm working right now, sometimes it's very difficult to tell what your end product is going to look like. And you could leave it as a surprise, but also, so if you want to do it a little bit more methodically, you can try and anticipate what your drawing is going to look like by judging the positive and the negative space versus like shape and line and your other elements of design like that. So if we look at my block right now, we can see that I have this space is very active and this space is plain. So we would consider this to be negative space and this to be the more positive space. Balance it based on what we can see. You're not imagining anything out there and trying to visualize too much, but just looking at what we could see and trying to judge based on that what's happening. Now I'm gonna want to take a little bit too much paper. All right, actually, that's fine. So now what I'm going to do is the paint application for this is going to be different. So using acrylic paint again, of course, oil paint works fine and printmaking ink works best. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this and apply it to my surface. Of course, you want to try and allow time for things to, your glue and stuff to set before you applying. Of course, because I use hot glue, I don't have to wait as long to let glue set. Inking it up. All right. Now, sometimes with this process, what's necessary is to go back and take away some of the paint. Because too much paint could gob up some of the finer details and cause us not really be able to see what's going on. So you want to take off a little bit of the paint. Now in this area down here, where I haven't applied a texture, that's space for me to go in and.
Hey, the internet looks like it's a bit better. Wait, spoke too soon. Oh wait, yeah.
Take out some of that color, and I could use my finger. That works really well too. Take out some color in an interesting way. Let's see. All right. Clean my hands a little bit. So now this one, this kind of printmaking is a little bit more, I mixed up that piece of paper. Is a little bit more difficult to register. So what you're just gonna try and do is don't overstress, but we're judging the block by our paper. So you know what size our paper is, you know what size our block is, and we're just trying to get it in the middle. So what I always try to do is put one side down so that I could see underneath and just pull it straight down. Okay. Another thing that really takes time to get used to with this process too is different materials require different amounts of pressure to get a relief. So some things you have to press harder for to see the texture, and some things you only need to press lightly to get the texture. And if you press too hard, you lose the texture. So you might find yourself, depending on what the material is, using one kind of pressure on one part of your drawing and another kind of pressure on the other. But the trick is to just keep going. Don't get discouraged. Keep pulling prints, keep trying things out, and you'll understand what's going on well enough that you could pick up a material and say, okay, this is X malleable or Y malleable, it's this hard or this soft, and that could tell you how much pressure you need to apply. So here comes our first print. And here we go. There we are. So we can see, you can see what happened. Okay, now this definitely maybe needs a little bit more pressure, but I do like how down at the bottom, we got a really good kind of gesture thing going there. And that's not a bad first layer. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna jump to a different plate that I have prepared, just so you could see what the possibilities are. I would like to show y'all as many possibilities as possible. That's funny. Okay. So here we have, that go away. That should be fine, though. That should be interesting. Here we have another plate. Now, this is actually a piece of linoleum that I had laying around, and it works really well for this process. It's printmaking material, so it's used to taking paint and all of that stuff, and it lends to this very nicely. But of course, if you don't have this, you don't have to use it. Like I said, a piece of wood is fine, a piece of paper is fine, a piece of cardboard could do this nicely as well too. And all this is just fishing line that I've hot glued to the surface and then applied underneath tinfoil. And this doesn't have to be, you know, tinfoil that you get right from the store, the heavy duty expert chef level tinfoil. It doesn't have to be that. This could be tinfoil that just came off the pan that your mommy is about to throw away or daddy is about to throw away. It doesn't matter. And it can be used again for this process. All right, so we're gonna set this down. Once again, we're gonna once again, we're gonna add the paint to our block. And now there's a lot of stray pieces, so there's gonna be a lot of movement and stuff like that. And of course, you can't always tell what that's gonna make for your drawing, but just go with it. All right, just adding some paint here. And as you'll see as you apply paint to the different types of textures, that they respond differently to the paint. As you can see, once I'm applying it, these areas, I don't know if you can see that. These areas that are tinfoil, obviously the paint doesn't absorb into the tinfoil, so it kind of just sits on top of the surface. Whereas with the paper's gonna absorb that material a little bit and suck it in. So that means we should get two different kinds of lines and marks from that for sure. And I'm still watching how much paint I apply. I'm still aware of what's going on. And of course, it doesn't matter what color you work with, it's fine. You just go ahead. But the same color application techniques apply in this method as all printmaking methods. So if you want to do multiple colors, you always want to start with your light color first, pull your prints, let them dry, then add your next darkest color after that, and so on and so forth. Okay? So our block is set. I'm gonna go in and actually take off some of the paint for the tinfoil areas, because I think that is just sitting on the top and that's gonna smush around on my paper and just make one big blob, and I'm not necessarily interested in the one big blob thing, okay? But if that's what you're interested in, go for it. Try my best to keep my hands clean. I'm not too good at it. Maybe you're a little bit better, but you want to keep your hands clean so that when you go to touch the paper you're printing on, your printing paper stays clean for the most part. So again, I'm gonna pinch the top, okay? Shut it down. Go straight. And apply some pressure. Now I could really feel the texture underneath this because of the fishing line. Fishing line it moves around a lot if you don't glue it all the way down, but at the same time, it is very rigid because it's not soft, you know, it's not spongy. So we're gonna see what happens in a second. And I can already start to see my image coming through. I can tell that my block isn't straight, but that's okay. And here we are. And we can see all of our line variations, and we can see some of the differences in our texture. Okay. I like what the tinfoil is doing, but actually I'm thinking that maybe could have used a little bit more paint. Let's try and pull another one off that block. Okay, so I'm actually gonna add a little bit more paint in some of the areas. I don't think all of the areas need it, but try not to tear your paper. Try not to move the paper around. So you want to press hard, but not so hard that you damage your work. There's a couple of different tools you can use to apply pressure to the back. For example, this is literally just a brush I had randomly on the table, and it has a flat back. I'm gonna hold the bristles, and I could just rotate in small circles around on the back of our print, and that'll apply pressure a little bit more evenly than a hand or something. And that works well. Okay. Here we see our image. Maybe we could have used a little bit more paint, but we are seeing our lines come through, and we know what's working and what's not working, okay? Okay. Let's try another one. I'm gonna put a lot of paint this time. Right here, working on this show for the kids then. Okay, so we're just applying our paint. And I'm noticing on the first couple, it was a little thin. So this time I'm going crazy with the paint. We're gonna see what happens here. Now, when we do this, I'm guessing that we're probably gonna lose a lot of our finer details, but who knows? And then after I do this one with the full paint, I'm gonna show you another way to do this that could be interesting. We'll see if it works. Well, actually, no, I'll switch blocks and then I'll show you that. So that works better for the other block. Okay. And here's our block. It's not completely covered in paint. We can still see some white areas. I don't want to overdo it because remember, this paint does shift around. So we want to be cognizant of that as we work. Okay. So I'm just going to lightly press it to set our paper down so it doesn't shift around too much. And then I'm going to try something else. Now, I'm going to try the bristle side of the brush and see if I can apply a texture with a softer texture and what kind of image that creates. And remember, these can be layered over. So don't feel too bad if you don't like the first pull you make. Sometimes the block to me doesn't feel good until you've done like 2 or 3 pulls off of it. And then maybe you get to a level where you can pull a block that's saying something you wanted to say, you know? And I can tell just from the back of this that that was different. It was interesting, hard to explain, but try things out because you will learn stuff when you try new things. Okay, here we go. Looking at our textures again. All right. We'll just let that dry as well. Okay. Now what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to try and see how much of this paint I can get off this block. And I'm just removing it, enough paint so that I can still see some of the textures, but you can tell that. So there's still some paint on my block, but I don't know who all remembers our block before, but okay. Now, because of how little paint there is on this block, I know that I'm gonna have to apply a good amount of pressure. And also as you go, make sure that you're cleaning up your work area of any loose paint because you don't want paint anywhere where you didn't intend to put it.
I'll just slide it to you.
Here's our sheet. Okay. Set my paper down. Now here's a little trick. I'm going to tape the top edge of my paper down so that I can raise it and look at my block and see what areas need a little bit more pressure or a little bit more paint. And I don't move my block so I don't lose where the registration is. Sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't work. but it all depends on how you do it. If you're really cautious about it, it tends to work. And I find that push pins work a lot better than tape. So if you have push pins or maybe sewing pins, they go through the paper nicely and they don't make a huge ugly hole in the paper. So it doesn't ruin your print, but it can help you see what's going on and make adjustments. So now I'm gonna apply a good amount of pressure. I wish I had some, okay, there we go. I'm using the tape. Usually what a professional printmaker would have is a press or a little tool that helps them to apply pressure to the back of the work. But many things can be improvised and used to your benefit. All right. So I'm just going to take a little peek to see if I am content with what's happening on the surface of the work. And you want to be careful because the things you're adding to your surface don't always want to be made into printmaking supplies. So sometimes you have to take your time so that things don't tear, you don't ruin your work and all of that. Okay.
Just sent me this. You sent me. Did you do that? Oh.
So here's our print.
The live stream?
Yeah.
There we go.
Sorry, I just wanted to make it do something. Okay. It's starting to do something.
Okay.
All right, let's try another
Maybe
message.
it's just up the whole time you didn't see it.
My block has run away.
Up in the background, something you didn't see it.
Okay. Now this is what I was looking forward to trying for you guys. So this is just a regular piece of tin foil. This one is a little bit more heavy duty because what I actually did was I just took an old tin foil pan, like, you know, the disposable tin foil pans, and I just cut this square out of the bottom. And then you can see these raised areas, or on the backside, I guess these divots. I just took a nail, the head of a nail. I have my nail here somewhere. But I took a pencil. You can take a pencil, you could take a head of a nail, you could use a comb, you could use the back of your paintbrush. Anything that is rounded enough to make an indentation. I mean, rounded enough not to pierce through, but firm enough to make an indentation into the foil that stays. So I'm gonna tape this down to my table, just because I don't want it to move. Okay. Now, depending on what side you use, it should give you a different effect. So on this side that I'm using, I'm looking at the raised portion and not necessarily side that indents. So we're gonna apply the paint and see how it responds, okay? Now, foil does not absorb paint. It's not going to absorb paint. So depending on what type of paint you use, it shouldn't even really, it should all just sit right on the surface. So you do want to be more careful with how much paint you use when you're using materials like that, because it'll gunk up on you fast. Okay. Another thing to notice is that foil is very malleable. The same way it's easy to make an indentation into it, you could very well ruin. So sorry. You could very well ruin the indentations you make by applying too much pressure. So you don't want to apply too much pressure and then over smooth out what's underneath your drawing, because then you lose your paint. Then you lose your print. You just get flat, you know? So you want to be careful of that. I need a little bit more paint on my plate, and then this ink is drying pretty fast because I'm outside. But usually what can help too is if you find that your paint is drying really fast, turn on the fans, close the window or two. Now this is if that paint is breathable. If that paint is not breathable, then you don't want to be closing yourself in. But if you find that your water-soluble paint medium is drying too quickly, then you can turn off your fan or close your window, and that should help to delay the paint drying process. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to just take a little bit of the excess paint off, because I don't want too much of it to come off onto my paper. Okay. So this is what my block looks like right now. Thank you. Sorry about that. But here we go. Let's try it out and see. Upside down. And remember, you don't want to ruin our image underneath, so we're just pressing really lightly and trying to see what happens now. I hope I didn't take off too much of the paint, because if so, then we won't get much of an image. But let's look through the texture underneath. Okay, yeah, that's very faint. So my paint is drying too quickly. I need to put some more paint on, probably not take it off, and then go from there. Okay. So sometimes cleaning the block takes the most amount of time, but it's a necessary step in the process, and it helps to take it helps to take your time and do it properly, or to do it the way that you would like to do it, so that you can take note of everything that's going on and you can repeat the process later. Because it's easy to do something once, but when we have control of the medium, we can use it to really say the things that we want to say and do the things that we want to do, you know? Okay, so I'm gonna use the same paper again. I'm gonna try and line it up, but because of this, what we're doing today, I'm not gonna be too much of a stickler about the registry. I know that many printmakers won't agree with me telling you that, but to be honest, the work is what you make it. And if you want it to be something, it can be that. There's no real rules. Only best practices. Okay, so I'm applying again. And we've applied more paint, but I'm going to use the same amount of pressure because, like I said, I don't want to lose my drawings underneath. And actually, I can start to see it already start to pick up and take. So I'm excited. There we go. All right, and that's a lot closer to what we were trying to do. Okay, but we can still see areas that maybe took a little bit too much paint. But as they dry, if you want to hit it with another layer, if you want to go in with and edit it with a paintbrush, all of that is fine too. Okay. So now what I want to try and do is now, just for the sake of time, I'm going to jump right into this next side of this. But of course, what you would really want to do is clean up this block, prep a new work area space, and then do this. But just for the sake of right now, I'm going to flip this over. Okay, so now we're working in the reverse. All of our raises are now going to be receding. Okay, so now I think this is probably going to lend better to us taking away the paint, because what's going to happen is as we remove paint from the surface, the paint is going to sit in those paths or those receding areas where we made our lines and indentations, and that should apply paint to our paper in a different way. So we'll see if maybe we get a reverse of what happened the first time around, or some variation of it. We'll see what happens. Right now I'm just applying the paint to the block. And I can see that even those receding areas, once I have to go over them sometimes 2 and 3 times just to get paint down in the crevices. Okay. Let's try this out. One side down. Oh, almost made a boo-boo. Missed the step. Let's remove the paint first. I think little circles is going to be fine for this. I'm actually just going to tear a piece of this rag. Okay. It's always good to have rags handy while I was working. Okay. Now you can kind of see what I mean by paint. Paint is sitting in those lines. Okay. And I'm just lightly pressing. There's a lot of paint on my page. Still, I don't want to damage my surface, my plate. I don't want to damage my textures. Okay, and we can see how different that is. Okay, and we can see how different that is. All right. Now, what I would like to do is, now that we've pulled a couple of prints, I'm gonna clear my workspace again, and I just wanna pull out some of our older prints that we started today and show you some things that you can do to finish them off, bring them to a place where you really want it to be, okay? So let's plan a little bit. See our print here, and we see the way this one is, there's a lot going on at the bottom. That comes through nice and clear. And there's a little bit of background noise kind of happening in the background. So what I'm gonna try to do is set up a block that's more top heavy and that can fill in some of these areas that are exposed right now, okay? I actually want to come back to this top block again, this first block. Okay, I got a little bird hair feather in there now, but that's fine. Now we know that this area to the bottom here is what pulled our first section. So we're gonna move forward to next. Actually, let's try a different color. Okay, so red is our first color. So we need something a little bit more kick than red. Let's actually this yellow should take fine. Because we have a lot of white spaces. So the yellow probably won't go over the red, but it'll definitely respond to the white spaces. So I'm gonna pour out a little bit of this. Okay. So I've selectively applied paint to our block in the area that I wanted to show up on our face. And again, trying to line up the register so that these, what's already on our paper lines up with what's on our block right now. Okay. And right now our block is pretty abstract. So, but I like where it's going. But what I'm going to do to balance that out is I'm going to take something not so abstract and try to see if we can encompass that in some way. So I'm going to reach behind me here, pull a couple of leaves off this tree. I should really be using dead leaves, but all right. So put a little paint on our leaf. And again, this is one of the reasons why I really like this method is because it lends itself nicely to a couple of things. You can work on top of it. You can work on your paper before you pull prints and then pull prints on top of those. It just kind of happens nicely. So I put paint on one side of the leaf, set my leaf down, paint side down on the paper, and I'm just pressing lightly on the leaf so that I can get my little marks. I'm gonna use a darker color so that yellow isn't really showing up. I'm gonna use some of this black. Now, when you're working with leaves and stuff like that, it's best to work on the side of the leaf that has the veins protruding the most. Okay, if you feel it with your finger, you'll understand exactly what I mean. You feel one side leaf and it's smooth, the other side, you can clearly feel the veins. You want the vein side. That's the side you want down. So all right, that's perfect. Let's do a couple of those. Now, certain leaves work better than others. I find sea grape leaves work really well when it comes to printmaking. Anything with a really prominent vein is going to work well. But sometimes all you really need to do is suggest this shape, and then people can fill it in with their minds, or you can fill it in with the pencil or something like that, you know? Multiple ways to, I want to say that, but I mean, there's multiple ways to get things done. Okay. So I hope you can see that. But if you see right in the bottom left, my left, your right corner, you see those 3 lines there? Those are the leaf marks. I can see them quite distinctly this closely, but I don't know if you can. So, but again, this process is about getting to know the process, the material, so that you can make educated guesses of your own and do your own exploration and discovery. You might figure some way to do this that I don't know, you know? There's literally endless possibilities to how this could go. Like I said, getting the pressure right is a big part of it. And doing it in a way so that you don't lose the lines that you're making as you're making them. Because I don't know, when I painted only, when I was just a painter, I always knew that paint moved, but I never realized how much paint moves. And I think that as I started to use paint outside of just painting on a canvas, I really started to understand how liquid wet paint is, you know? And understanding the texture of your paint and all of that will make this way easier. Oh, my paper's blown away. Now, of course, always you want to be doing this stuff because this can get messy. You want to be doing this down on a surface that you don't mind getting paint on, and you know. Okay. And then we have our little designs and stuff. Okay. And now let's try to do something to clean up our edges. So we know we have our frayed edges and stuff like that. Where's my ruler? Here's my ruler. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna Go back in. Start my river firmly. There we go. There is our print. Okay. Awesome. We want to sign it again. So get our pencil. And this is a 1 of 1. So we put 1/1, like a fraction. Then we want untitled. Matthew Rahming. That's me. Artist name. And the date. So I'm just gonna do another. So it's always edition number, followed by the title of the piece, followed by the artist name, followed by the year. Okay, and always right along the bottom edge of your print and always in pencil. Okay. I think that's all the time we have.
That's awesome, Matthew. Thank you so much. I don't see any questions, so you're free to sign off whenever you're ready.
Okay. So thank you very much. I appreciate you guys coming to see me do things that are art related, and I hope you learned something cool. All right.
And just a reminder to our campers to please remember to sign, to share, your work if you want to, using the hashtags NAGB242 or NAGB Planet Earth. Or you can email your pictures of your work at zmunro@nagb.org.bs or bfox@nagb.org.bs, or in social media too. So, all right, thank you guys. Thank you, Matthew. Have a good day.